Tonight on Free Minds TV, we'll talk about China encouraging smoking, quack remedies and how they spread, and the Pebble Dam ban. All that and more on Free Minds TV.
And welcome to a brand new edition of Free Minds TV. It's episode 109, where we challenge you consistently to think outside the box. With you, as always, is Toby.
And Nick.
We've got a lot to get into tonight, Nick. We're going to be going all around the world to stories where governments are, well, screwing things up again. We're going to be talking about some local news as well as some news coming from Washington and the Supreme Court. But first, let's start somewhere else. Let's pick on China a little bit because they did something, and some news articles are coming out that are just completely ridiculous, having to do with smoking.
Yep, and in the United States, government officials tend to try to use public policy to force people to not smoke. But in China, they're still doing that social engineering part of the equation where they're threatening people with fines or in some way taxing them or incentivizing them to carry out a particular behavior. But in this case, China is encouraging government officials to smoke cigarettes. Officials in Gangwon County in Hubei province in China are being told to smoke 250,000 packs of locally produced Hubei brands of cigarettes. The idea here is that it will benefit the tobacco industry in China. Now, I don't know what they're saying about the public health effects on this, but the idea is basically it's protectionism for companies in China. It's another way to say protect Chinese jobs instead of what the United States is trying to protect U.S. jobs.
Well, at least they don't actually have to smoke them. They could just buy them and throw them away if they wanted or give them away. I mean, they don't necessarily have to smoke them as long as they're supporting the tobacco companies. And now while here in the U.S. this might sound ridiculous, we've had all these recent campaigns, the Truth campaigns and others, to try to crack down on smoking and get people to quit smoking. Just 50 years ago, we were doing the exact same thing, giving away cigarettes to people in the military and getting people hooked on cigarettes. So, I mean, it's not that out of the realm of what the United States was doing just a little while ago.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're looking at the rationality of the public policy here, people will talk a lot about how, well, smokers cost society, or usually they're talking about government when they're saying society, will cost the government more money in health care and things like that. Well, the fact of the matter is, smokers tend to die a lot sooner than people who are non-smokers, and they tend to suck up a lot more money through programs like Social Security.
Well, they suck up less money because, well, they're dying sooner.
Right, so smokers take up less money than healthy people.
Right, because, I mean, a healthy person who might live until they're 85 years old, for example, well, they're going to cost a lot in Social Security and Medicaid to keep them running that long. But a smoker who smoked their whole life that dies at the age of 62 doesn't suck up any of this money. Well, they're really helping society a lot because they're not sucking the teat of the government here if they are smoking. So, I mean, yeah, if you wanted to fix the Social Security problem, I guess, try to get baby boomers to take up smoking or die at an early age. Anyways, I don't think it's probably a good idea, but the fact of the matter is, here in the United States, when we're saying that we need to tax smokers up to, I think some places, over $10 a pack now, most of that is taxes, because the health benefits on society, well, it's just simply not true. The numbers do not play out. Smokers cost society less money, cost the government less money. So if you're looking to demonize smokers, well, it's got to be because you don't like the smell of smoke. It's not due to the health benefits they're going to be costing society.
Yeah. It's good to point out here, though, that if you kill yourself off as soon as you stop paying taxes and start collecting on Social Security or other programs, you're benefiting that balance too. So you could just blow your brains out the day before retirement, but we're not really suggesting that either. So it's not that smoking is a good idea, but some of the arguments that are being used to justify hikes in the tobacco tax and things like that, they just really don't hold up.
Right. So anyways, smoking probably not good for your health, but all this government stuff, I mean, whether they're telling you to do it, telling you not to do it, or if you're counting on the government for that Social Security, well, I just wouldn't do it. It's probably not a good idea. The lesson learned, don't trust what the government says. I mean, today they're in the United States, they're saying don't smoke or we're going to tax you. Over in China, they're saying smoke because for the good of the country, for the good of tobacco farmers, you know, I'd say do what you think is right.
Yeah, I mean, well, and as you were pointing out, Toby, even here in the U.S., at one point the government did encourage at least government employees to smoke, and that's what they're doing here in China. They're threatening government officials who are on the government payroll with fines not the average citizen. So.
All right.
It's
Well, we got to
interesting
move
to point that out.
on. Let's stop picking on China because we certainly have enough problems here where we're broadcasting from in the U.S. Let's go over and talk about a grandmother who's gotten in trouble for taking photographs of, is it her grandchild?
Yes, it's her granddaughter, and this story is out of Pennsylvania. It's actually a follow-up article. Back in 2005, a Walmart worker reported 59-year-old Donna Dull to authorities because she had brought film in to get developed, and a couple of photos in that reel of film showed her 3-year-old granddaughter just inside and just outside of a bathtub. So, the worker reported her for child pornography, and she was in the court system for 15 months on a child pornography charge, which was dropped. So she got into trouble. Now she's out of trouble, and she is now suing. And the follow-up here is that government officials are trying to reassure people that the law was only intended for actual predators, actual people who are going to prey on children, not parents and grandparents taking pictures of their infants or young kids naked. Well, the interesting thing is they're giving mixed messages here. Christopher Moore, who is a special prosecutor in the York County District Attorney's Office, was commenting on the gray area between a typical family picture and child pornography. And he's saying that the picture that a pedophile might enjoy and the picture that is a typical family picture might be the same picture. But in the same article, he's saying that there's no reason for parents and grandparents to avoid taking those pictures.
Unless you don't want to go through the headache of having to go through the court system and everything that's entailed. How much did this woman, how much did it cost her, and how much of a psychological toll did it have on her to be dragged through the whole system like this?
Yeah, and I mean, they quote a couple of other prosecutors here, and it is a reason for people to be worried, whether they're just regular parents or grandparents, because basically the prosecutors cannot agree.
Right. And I mean, this isn't an isolated incident. I mean, we've seen cases where child pornography is coming out when it just isn't that. I mean, recently the huge thing in the news is kids taking pictures of themselves or each other and sending them around. We're talking about high schoolers, maybe 15, 16, 17-year-olds who are taking pictures of their special parts and sending them around via the cell phones, and sometimes they're being charged with not only possession of child pornography but also manufacturing and having to be on the sex offender registry list and go to jail, get dragged through the courts because they're creating child pornography by taking pictures of themselves, something that they have a piece of technology, they're curious about their bodies and sharing it with their friends. Yeah, it's probably not a good idea, but is dragging them through the court system going to help them? It seems like a parental issue, something that should be dealt with at home, but instead we're seeing cases pop up all over the United States where poor innocent teenagers are being dragged through the courts because they made a decision to take a picture of themselves and send it to one of their friends. Are they creating child pornography? Well, they're teenagers, they're almost adults, some of them have been 17, it is considered child pornography. The same thing as taking a picture of, say, like an 8 or 9-year-old. Is that the same thing? No, it's obviously, clearly it's not. But still, people are being dragged from the courts. Tax dollars are going towards prosecuting and going after these people. It's essentially a witch hunt, and it's pathetic. It really makes me wonder why prosecutors, what kind of a prosecutor would want to sign up for this and go after these people? Do they actually think they're benefiting society and helping people?
I think there are some prosecutors who are basically happy to throw anybody in jail as long as they get a conviction, whether they're doing it because they want to make themselves look tough and give themselves a record with more sex offense convictions, or just fewer, I don't know, letting people plead out. Just nobody wants to look soft on crime when you're a prosecutor, but it leads to irrational policies. And as we've seen with these cases, these people in Pennsylvania commenting on this, even among prosecutors, there's a range of disagreement. They're saying there's a gray area, so it's really arbitrary as to which DA is in your local area and whether you're going to get charged with producing child pornography or not. Because some of them are going to use any excuse they can to drag you into court and try to convict you. whereas others are going to be more reasonable and agree with you on that it's not child pornography. So it leaves people in the lurch because nobody's quite sure exactly where the line is. It's being applied arbitrarily.
Well, the line should be with the parents and letting parents take care of this and not dragging people through the courts and wasting my tax dollars on this, because I think it's crap. I mean, I would be going after the prosecutor for this kind of bull. I mean, seriously, I mean, you're spending my money to throw innocent people in jail and ruin lives who haven't hurt anybody. I mean, they're making poor mistakes, yes, but should they have criminal records for it? Should they be considered sex offenders? It's ridiculous. Anyways, let's move on. Let's pick on the UK a little bit. With their nanny statism, there's always something. Every single day they're doing something ridiculous that just makes them an easy target. This time, they're going after pebble dams. Yes, in Nettleham, in the UK, in the United Kingdom, there is a 6-year-old boy by the name of Daniel Johnson who very much enjoys going out to a brook out behind his house and making little pebble dams. The brook is about 3 inches deep, and the pebble dams that he's making are about 4 to 5 inches tall. Well, the city council in Nettleham is very upset with this because, quote, it is a grave danger that he is creating that could lead to a flash flood. Now, they're overreacting here because a few years back in 2007, there was a flood in Nettleham, but no, it was not created by pebble dams. They are strongly urging at this point, they're not threatening yet, but strongly urging at this point with letters telling the boy to cease and desist making his pebble dams. Now, let me ask you, what boy out there at some point in their life didn't go to the stream and make a pebble dam? This is a part of growing up, and no, it's not going to cause a natural disaster. It's not going to cause a flood. We're talking about pebbles stacked 5 inches tall to make a little dam. It's something that's fun for kids to do, and the city council is wasting their time on this. I mean, the UK, you guys paint yourselves with a red target. I mean, you guys are so easy to go after because it's so pathetic what they're doing out there. I mean, is this what they're wasting their time on? Going after a young kid, a 6-year-old, for stacking up pebbles in a stream? We're talking about a 3-inch stream here, too.
Yeah, I mean, if the kid could actually cause a flash flood by piling pebbles 5 inches high, he should go into engineering because he would obviously have a lot of talent. It doesn't make any sense, but a lot of the policies we've seen coming out of the UK make even less sense than what we see here in the US. I mean, we have a creeping nanny state and a creeping police state here in the United States, but the UK seems to be about 10 years further down the road. So they're where we're headed if things continue in the direction they're going here in the United States.
Right. Next on the chopping block, beavers. They're the next danger out there. I mean, they create even bigger pebble dams out of wood. So anyways, watch out for beavers. Watch out for 6-year-olds. They could destroy us all. Anyways, we can't do much about what's going on in the UK. They're always going to be a little bit psycho when it comes to their dictating the policies and really getting down into the nitty-gritty of nanny statism. But one thing we can do is at least let the fools in Washington know what we think about some of the laws that they're passing, and we try to do that each week with the Downsizer Dispatch. What's this week's, Nick?
Well, this week's Downsizer's Dispatch deals with the continuing bailouts coming out of Washington, D.C. Now, this is out of money that has already been appropriated, but we're looking at another $50 billion out of the TARP fund that's going to be used to incentivize banks, essentially bribing banks to refinance loans that are in danger of default. Now, there's a problem with this. Downsize DC is pointing out that banks already have an incentive not to foreclose on a home or on any product, whether it's a car or anything they've got a loan out on, if it makes more sense to restructure that loan. If it's going to cost them more to restructure, then they foreclose. And in many cases, foreclosure makes more sense. That's why we've seen so many foreclosures around the country. But the government here is still going to try to get them to refinance loans that probably should be foreclosed on. So don't be surprised if a while from now we're seeing people who were kept in their homes who, again, can't make the payments. But it's typical because politicians now think they can run a car company, an insurance company, medical practices, and banks. It's just out of control. I mean, and they have their interests crossed too. On the one hand, you have the government saying that they're going to try to protect American jobs, but at the same time, the money they're giving to bail out GM is conditional on GM restructuring and cutting jobs. So it's just, when they get involved in this many things, they simply can't put together a rational set of policies. So if you object to bribing these banks that have already gotten a large amount of tax dollars and can probably do just fine on their own. Go to downsizedc.org, sign up for their downsizer dispatch, and use their Educate the Powerful system to let your elected officials in Washington know that you don't approve of corporate welfare.
Yeah, personally, I think we'd be a lot better off if we were to do away with the federal government completely, but while they're still there, might as well let them know what's on your mind. All right, when we come back, we're going to be talking about the scary, scary swine flu. Yes, it's an epidemic, at least if you turn on the radio or the television or listen to any of the big media out there. Panic, panic, panic. We're also going to be getting into some local activism and a whole lot more. Stay tuned. This is Free Minds TV.
Log on to freemindstv.com for archives of the show, the Free Minds Radio podcasts, show content and the forum, ways to donate, the members section, contact info, and a whole lot more, all at freemindstv.com.
Free Minds TV is brought to you in part by Life Productions for your basic and semi-pro video production needs. From full wedding and event coverage to DVD authoring and distributions, lifeproductions.com. That's lyfproductions.com.
Today, Ridley Report, Ridley here from ridleyreport.com, ridleyreport.com, at Ridleyography, I am the bomb. And I just want to tell you, you're watching freemindstv.com, and they're like really cool, so you should keep watching them. freemindstv.com, they are good.
And welcome back to Free Minds TV. It's Toby here with you.
And Nick.
Log on to our website, freemindstv.com. From there, there's all sorts of stuff. We have the radio show, which is on live on Sundays from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as well as a new blog that started up to update users, people who want to log on to the website, want to get updates on some of the stories we talk about. We have a blog that Nick and myself post on, as well as Zeus, the creator of our website, and hopefully others in the future, so there will always be something new up at freemindstv.com. Speaking of some of the updates in local activism, I just wanted to give a quick update. I know we did cover this on the Free Minds radio that we did this past week, so if you want to get the full coverage on this, log on to our website, freemindstv.com. But I just wanted to update the users, the viewers real quick, that Sam I Am from the Obscured Truth Network, who's helping us build our set, well, he's not right now because he's behind bars, is still behind bars awaiting trial. He's going on, it'll be by the time people are watching this, I think he'll be on his 4th week or maybe his 5th week behind bars. He's behind bars because he tried to bring a video camera into the courtroom and continue videotaping. He didn't make it into the courtroom. They arrested him in the lobby. And because he's refusing to give his full legal name, which he should have the right to do under the 5th Amendment, the right to remain silent, they're holding him indefinitely without a trial until he starts complying. So the right to remain silent, the right to a speedy trial, completely out the window. Also, last week we mentioned that Mike Barsky, who's behind the show, as well as Andrew Carroll, would be in court facing some charges. One of them was some marijuana civil disobedience, and Mike Barsky illegally organizing an event to gather people on public property. Well, his charges were dropped, and Andrew Carroll was found guilty, fined $420, which he's refusing to pay, and he's going to be appealing this.
They fined him $420.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? I don't know if the judge just has a sense of humor or what. $420, and, well, he's appealing this because he's not going to pay the fine, so he may go to jail, but anyways, he has a month before that. So it's not the end of his case, and it should be noted that Andrew did refuse to proceed with the trial and cooperate with it if cameras were not allowed in the court, like they had been banned in the past. Judge Burke didn't like cameras in the court. Well, mysteriously enough, he's now allowing them back in the court. So there is footage up of that. You can log on to freekeene.com if you want to view some of that. And I think the entire thing's up there. Anyways, some quick updates, but we do have to move on. There's real things to panic about this world. I mean, you can concentrate on local activism and trying to make change, but we can't always do that because there's real scary things in the world. And one of those, I turned on the radio today, and it's been going on for, I think, 2 weeks now, the swine flu. And we've been reporting on it. And I just want to encourage the viewers to continue to panic. It's not over yet. We're not out of the woods. There's now been a second death, due to swine flu since we, at least on the day we're recording this. And there's now over 400 cases. Now, some might say, is this as serious as influenza, which causes 36,000 deaths in the U.S. alone and causes millions of cases alone in the U.S. every year? Is it as serious? Well, Nick, I think you have the latest. Well,
Even Homeland Security, which usually likes to scaremonger, is saying that this swine flu is not likely to turn out to be anything worse than the regular seasonal flu. At the time of this article, the number of confirmed cases had just topped 1,080 cases.
In the world.
In the world. The flu has been blamed for, this is a little behind date, but 27 deaths now, with 26 of those in Mexico and the other 2 in the United States. So more people have died in car crashes since this whole thing started.
A lot more. More people have died by lightning strikes and falling coconuts since this has, whole thing has begun.
And some people will say, well, what's the harm? We might have, maybe people were overreacting, maybe governments and media were overreacting. But the fact of the matter is, if there are real health problems out there, if the media had been reporting on checking yourself regularly for breast cancer or some other health condition that is fairly likely to kill you, imagine how many people would have checked and been saved.
Or
probably
what about
more than the 27 or so who have died of swine flu.
What about some of the atrocities that are going on in Washington and around state and local governments right now that the media is supposed to be checking up on, checking what the government's actually doing? They haven't been doing any of that because they've been concentrating on the swine flu. This really makes me think, and we called this from the very beginning when the media and the government started freaking out about this, is it looks like some kind of a distraction technique. What are they not reporting on? We don't know. I mean, it's hard to say when all they're reporting on is the swine flu. Panic, panic, panic about the swine flu. Is there something else going on? I mean, we're not only here in the United States, but governments all over the world are freaking out about this. We reported on Free Minds Radio that Egypt is slaughtering all their pigs, 300,000 of them, slaughtering them, even though there's no swine flu in Egypt. And that's not even how the disease is spread. It's airborne. So killing off the pigs isn't going to be doing anything. You're just freaking out over no reason. I mean, I guess it is something to report on of how asinine the government's being on this.
The response is more significant than the disease
That's
itself.
what we're reporting on, is the ridiculous response that we have going on here. And it really is really ridiculous. I know you're a little skeptical about what else is going on, but why are they over-reporting on this so much?
The media over-reports on a lot of things. The media has over-reported on plenty of celebrities, with Britney Spears.
But usually when they're doing that,
Smith.
something else is going on that they don't want to be reporting on, that the government doesn't want them to be reporting on, whether they're torturing people or passing some FISA bill, throwing it through. Usually, when the media is reporting on Paris Hilton or something, some horrible piece of legislation gets pushed through.
Well, but horrible pieces of legislation are getting through every day.
But they're not reported on if all they're concentrating is on some lost blonde or the swine flu.
I really wouldn't count on the mainstream media in the U.S. to tell you much of what's going on. You've got a better chance with alternative media like Free Minds TV, and maybe look at media coming from other countries, because in some other places around the world, they really don't focus on the celebrity news cycle so much.
Well, anyways, they're freaking out in lots of parts of the world, but we do have to move on, because in case someone told you that if you do have the swine flu and someone told you that there's a cure for it out there, well, it might be one of those quack cures. And I have an article here that's a little bit interesting tidbit about how quack remedies and quack cures for things, well, they're usually more persuasive and pervasive, than real cures. And this is a study that was done, I think it was over in Australia, where they found that quack remedies persist more often because, well, they don't work. Therefore, people who are taking them, well, they take them more often and expose more people to them. Tell, well, maybe my friend, this is what I'm doing because I'm sick, and so I'm taking this, and they're exposing more people to it, so more people are exposed, thus more people take the quack remedies, versus a remedy that does work, a medicine that does work, they get better, and thus don't tell many people about it. Well, some rotten snake stew or a dead vulture from the side of the road may not cure syphilis or HIV. Well, in lots of parts of the world, that's what's used as a cure. And it's spreading out faster than real cures because, well, it's not working and people are telling their friends about it.
Yeah, there is a problem in that you're taking something that's not going to help you. So obviously you're going to get more sick
and you keep taking
possibly spread the disease. Right, and you keep taking it. I mean, I can see how it works. If you're taking vitamin C for the flu and it's not working, you're going to expose more of your friends to the fact that you're taking vitamin C, because you're probably going to talk about it, and you're going to be taking it for a couple of weeks or something like that. I'll admit that I will take vitamin C and echinacea, even though there's really not much scientific evidence to show that they do anything at all.
But
I
we
still
all
think
take it all the time. I mean, I take
least
it
I
too,
know
even though
that
I know
there's
it
no
doesn't.
evidence, though.
But the point is, we're exposing more people to it by us taking it. I see you pop a vitamin C. Oh, you're getting sick. Give me one of those. And so I start taking it, even though science shows it doesn't actually do anything. I think this is one of the reasons homeopathy out there is getting really big. I mean, when you actually look at the scientific evidence behind homeopathy, and this is the stuff where they break it down over and over again until there's nothing left to actually cure you, it continues to persist, and people are told about it, and it starts to leak out there. I mean, we see a lot of these, like the airborne, one of the cold remedies in the grocery store. Lots of people are taking it. It's not working for them, but they're telling all their friends about it. Anyways, just thought it was interesting how some of these quack remedies are spread along, but we do have to move on. There's some important news coming out of the Supreme Court, Nick. And that's having to do with Janet Jackson's breast. Yes, she is still in the news. What's it been since like 5 years since her nipple was exposed during the I don't know what year it was, during the Super Bowl when there was a wardrobe malfunction and her breast was momentarily exposed to, oh, those poor innocent children. How did they ever get over it? Well, previously, the 3rd District U.S. Court of Appeals in Philadelphia rejected the FCC's fine of $550,000, stating that it was a one-time wardrobe malfunction, and how can CBS be held responsible for it? Fining them over $500,000 just doesn't make sense. I mean, they really didn't have anything to do with it. But the Supreme Court took a look at it and has sent it back to the 3rd U.S. District Court. While they didn't overrule the case, they are telling the 3rd U.S. District Court in Philadelphia to further review the case just in case, well, they change their mind. Hint, hint, change your mind. Otherwise, we will. This coming after last week when the Supreme Court upheld the FCC's recent policy of putting fines against stations, TV stations, and radio stations, even for one utterance of a swear. Say a caller calls into the radio show, swears. Well, the FCC says, well, you can get fined for that as well, and the Supreme Court has recently upheld them.
Right, but the Supreme Court refused to rule on whether that was an offense against the First Amendment to the Constitution. Sort of unusual for the Supreme Court to make a ruling but say that they're not commenting on whether that ruling has anything to do with the Constitution.
Because they're hypocritical and they know that it directly violates the First Amendment and they don't want to say that.
It's interesting that they're referring this back to the lower court when the Supreme Court obviously has the ability to just overrule that lower court, but it seems like they want a different decision. They just don't want to be the ones making it.
They're a bunch of hypocritical wussies, if you ask me. Some of the most foolish people out there. Maybe there's a good one. I don't like the Supreme Court. I mean, it's pathetic. Old farts that should have died off a long time ago, if you ask me.
Well, my problem is that they tend to interpret way too much when it comes to the Constitution. And we really shouldn't need a Supreme Court to tell us what the Constitution says.
Well, they do, and it seems they rewrite it more than anything and make it up as they go along. I mean,
and they've essentially said that it means nothing now because they've made so many loopholes in it saying that, well, there's an elastic clause and the government can do whatever is necessary or proper. Basically, they're saying that there's no restriction on government unless we say there is.
Right. They're a bunch of old people in dresses who need to either retire or die. Anyways, we're out of time. That probably provoked a lot of you. FMTV at freemindstv.com is the email address. freemindstv.com is the website where you can help us out. Check out the blog. Check out Free Minds Radio and everything else. Anyways, it's been Toby here with you.
And Nick.
Have a great night.